With us now is Jeremy Denha. He is the physical education and health teacher and varsity boys basketball coach for the West Bloomfield High School. Coach, how are you guys doing?
Oh, we're staying afloat. It's been quite the adjustment. We, as a unit and as a program, we have 40 kids right now in our program, and our kids are doing the best they can, wearing the masks. We were in some non-contact practices, which is not ideal, but we looked at the alternative where we were kind of locked down with the lights off. Now the lights were back on, and we were able to get back in the gym, put a ball in these kids' hands, give them some structure. And then, when the order was lifted, we were told, all right, go play your games. So we literally didn't have a practice and played February 8th. Had one practice, then played 2 more games. So it has been crazy. There's been some exhaustion, but these kids are so resilient. I'm so proud of these boys right now, and we're gonna get this thing going, get it turned around.
Coach, I have to say though, because I played high school basketball, junior high, and I remember practice, and then you're like, don't go play a game. But on top of that, it's the mental roller coaster that you and your teammates, the kids have been throughout this entire thing. And for the state to lift the restrictions, a great decision, but also it came with 8 pages of instructions. How do you keep up with the changes?
We don't. No, it's funny. There's the instructions from the state, and then each school kind of has their own instructions as well. We have 4 of our opponents that aren't allowing fans, and everything's even a little more strict in those areas. But we're doing the best we can. We don't want any kids to, catch COVID, and we don't want any kids to take it home. So they're gonna adapt to it, wearing the mask while playing. I don't know if you guys have tried to put a mask on and get away from it. It's not easy. Even just to, do some minor cardio or do some weight training, it's difficult. So these kids are adjusting, and like I said, I'm really proud of what our guys are doing right now and how they're adjusting to it. And like I said, they'll get used to it all, and hopefully before the end of the season, and then hopefully we can have some fun and make a little run.
Yeah, I took a yoga class, and you're trying to do yoga with a mask on. It's like falling, and you're not even running and jumping like these kids are. But they really, to me, seem to be better at adapting to some of these rules and regulations than what we as adults have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think I even think of my own kids at home. We have 4 little ones at home, and I always tell everybody, these little kids they're 8, 6, and 2. They're more resilient than we are as adults, and I think our high school kids are doing the same thing. And they're going through a lot in terms of transition right now with the school district as well. Now they're back in person for half days. They're asked to practice every day. They're asked to play games. So there's a lot going on. It's just going to be. Like I said, I got to be patient with these guys, and they're going to get used to it. I'll get used to it as their coach, and we'll move forward.
Jeremy Denha with us. He is the head coach of the West Bloomfield High School boys varsity basketball team, as well as their physical education and health teacher. So with the state's new regulations, with the MHSAA's new regulations as well to restart the winter sports season, the scheduling of these games has been a little bit different because you did lose that time from the initial portions of the season, both with practices and with games. How is that scheduling different, and how is that scheduling affecting play on the court and your players as they prepare each day and for each game?
So we typically start in November with our tryouts, and then first game. So we usually have about 4 weeks of preseason practice, and we go 5 to 6 days a week. Typically our Saturdays are like our training days, our skill development days. And we had that with non-contact. Of course, we just had skill development because we couldn't have contact and play defense. Then we typically would start in December with our games and have 20 games. Right now we started February 8th, and we have 17 games scheduled. So we're going to lose 3 games. We're going to do it in 6, and we're only going to have a 6-week season. So now it's I think I looked at the last time I looked at a calendar. I think we have more games than we do practices. So it's, and how that's affected these kids right now. Our shooting percentages are really down based off of we haven't been able to, really play offense against live defense. Our defensive rotations aren't what they used to be. But all that's kind of coming as we go along. We've had 4 games. Like I said, we've had 4 games so far, and I think we've had 4 practices.
Yeah, it's just like we saw in the football season, the effect that having the season cut off so closely in proximity to tryouts and to team designations, varsity, JV, freshman, etc. That does throw off the chemistry. It does throw off the preparation, getting your game plans and your systems in place to be able to be prepared for those games. And so you have to expect to come into the season with a little bit lower quality of play than you normally would start off with, because there's been that cutoff and that flow hasn't been there as it normally would be. What do you tell your players, and what has your staff been saying to the players on your varsity squad as they go through those growing pains in this season, knowing that things will eventually come together, even if their confidence may not be there just yet?
Our main goal, and this was with we've lost 2 of our games already at the buzzer. We hit a shot to win it last night, but it came about a tick late. And then we also lost our first game at the buzzer. My message game 1, before we even tipped off, or not tipped off because we're not allowed to with COVID, we kind of had to take it out of bounds. But my message was, you can't get too high or too low with wins and losses. The expectation is we get better every single day. And that's just learning each other, learning our rotations. From a player standpoint, it's getting your legs underneath you, going through the battles and going through the games, and just getting better. We want to win. Every game we go into, we want to win. But that isn't the main goal right now. The main goal is, regardless of the game, we get better. We put them through a tough battle. And then the next day needs to be a learning day again. And we need to just build off of every single game. It's not the wins and the losses right now. It can't be.
In terms of gameplay, you mentioned that there isn't a tip-off. That kind of tipped me off to this next question. What other changes have been made to the process of playing a game of basketball? Of course, at the high school and the college level, there's the possession arrow rule, but in this case, the tip-off is one of the hallmarks of the game of basketball. It begins basketball games at every single level. That and other rules and other changes in the process of the game, what have those been in terms of keeping COVID-19 safety on the court each and every game, changing up the way basketball's played?
Well, there's just a couple little changes. The start of the game with the jump ball, they just play it like it was halftime. So the away team gets the ball to start on the sideline, and then the home team gets it to start the second half. But the other thing is the officiating. Like some of the guys are using electronic whistles, which have a little delay in them at times. I think last night, the guys, one of the officials' whistles wasn't working well. So, a foul was called about 5 seconds after the fact. And us as coaches, we just have to be patient with that stuff. We've also had 2 games where the officials aren't touching the basketball. So, at a free throw line, the opposing team is tossing the ball to the kid at the free throw line. And that's a pretty big deal because it can take a kid out of rhythm. We always talk to the kids about going through your routine at the free throw line. Our kids' routines are kind of screwed up right now based off of they're not getting that, the bounce back to them. And then the other thing, if a game goes into overtime, they're going with a coin toss rather than a jump ball again. So, but it's not huge changes. But there are some things. This is just one of those things that we're going to adjust to as coaches. We're going to adjust to as players, and we'll move forward. It'll be fine.
So, Coach, as you're saying that, we know that sports is about more than winning and losing. It's about life lessons. This is a season that is a different season. What life lessons do you think your students and your players are going to get out of the season?
I think a big thing is when you do what you're supposed to do and follow the rules, good things happen. These kids were shut down for a long time. They were shut down, I think it was 10 months, our basketball kids, where we typically would have had, we would have had our spring workouts, summer basketball, where we kind of traveled to some, University of Michigan, Oakland, University of Detroit, where we travel around and get these kids some games. and then we missed them this year, this first semester in our conditioning class where we get to see these kids. So I think by them following the rules and doing what they're supposed to do, they were able to have a season and have that sense of normalcy. And I think it shows, hey, you fight through it, you do what you're supposed to do and do what's asked of you, good things happen. And right now it's a good thing. And regardless of the changes, regardless of the limitations, these kids being on the floor with their peers is huge. So I think it's a lesson of, all right, I'm going to follow the rules and do what I'm told to do, and it's going to pay off for me. And I think that's a huge lesson. And I think the other thing is, it's not just sports in general, but what COVID has kind of done is hopefully it's going to open up those social relationships again, where it's that in person. These kids, you can tell just the group I have right now with them just being silly with one another, just being with the guys right now. It's something that we've missed out, honestly, the last 3 or 4 years. This year, this group seems a lot closer. They seem to be like last night. Last night was a tough loss, and they seem to be kind of supporting one another more than they have in the past.
I will say, though, Coach, the big concern for so many of these students, it's not just the game, but also their futures on the line here and the potential for scholarships and also missing out on scholarships. So when you're saying you have more games than you do practices, could that impact some of the players and their futures as well? Because other states have not had the lockdown and the restrictions that we've had here in Michigan. Therefore, maybe some of the college recruits are looking at other states more so than Michigan.
I don't know how much that's going to affect us in terms of recruiting. I think the big thing that's going to affect recruiting is what the NCAA, the NAIA have done, and the junior college levels with, these kids that are all in college right now got a free year. So that's going to really affect these next two classes, the 2021s and 2022s, because there might not be the spots that there normally were. These kids are going to get film, and we're going to send film on to guys. And yeah, these coaches can't be on the road. So of course that'll have a minor effect. But I think the bigger thing is the NCAA and rightfully so, these kids should be getting another year in college, but it's going to affect recruiting probably for our next two classes. I think our juniors and seniors are going to be affected. Maybe they have to take a different route to the next level, whether they're going to a junior college if they're a really good student and then they play there for a year, or if they go to a prep school. But it's going to be tougher. It's already tough in basketball to find a fit because the roster numbers are so short. And if these schools aren't getting more money, especially at the Division II and Division III levels, it's going to really affect our kids' abilities to play at those levels.
We're joined by Jeremy Denha on the Oakland County Megacast, Civic Center TV, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, the Birmingham Area Municipal Access and West Bloomfield School District's Facebook page. Jeremy Denha is the physical education and health teacher, as well as varsity boys basketball coach at West Bloomfield High School. And this is a big learning opportunity for our student athletes. And we've seen in the fall sports season that a lot of these athletes thrived under the unique pressures and the unique adversity of playing a season where COVID-19 regulations are in place. In terms of what you're seeing so far with your players on the basketball court, how has the adversity of the COVID-19 pandemic, both off the court and on the court, helped them develop into better players and better leaders, which is one of the hallmarks of youth sports and why we play them?
I think when life events kind of knock you down and you can respond to them, it's not about being a better player. I think they missed out on some of that, some of those training situations, getting shots up, but the resiliency, in team sports, you need to be resilient. You need to be able to forget about the previous play, whether it was good or bad, the previous win or loss. And I think that by them battling through this COVID-19 pandemic and being at home and their life kind of being flipped upside down, I think that has created the tougher kid emotionally. They're picking up skills that maybe they didn't have, and the other thing, a lot of, and I don't know if you guys have ever taken an online class, you have to be self-directed and you have to be self-motivated to kind of get some things done. And I think our kids, by doing all that stuff, is going to greatly affect them, down the road. And we didn't have to, we never grew up, through a pandemic and had to deal with these kids are dealing with. For them to be able to bounce back, I think that's just a life lesson that none of us adults could teach to them.
Well, Coach, they're very lucky to have someone such as yourself helping them navigate this crazy, crazy world that we are all living in right now. But also, thank you for your time and your commitment to the kids, but also to our community. And with that, though, anything we didn't maybe touch on that you want to share before we say goodbye?
No, but thank you guys so much for having me on, and be willing to come in whenever you guys want to hear about the hoops team or West Bloomfield School District. I think that everything around here, I think we're doing what's right for the kids, and we want to keep doing that. So we appreciate you guys.
Well, and Coach, go Lakers.
Thank you.